Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 2, Other Heroes of Chaos. Chapter 176, Breaking Waves. Xiao Qiye headed south from Bianbo camp to join up with the Tse province garrison troops at the borders of Libya. But instead of continuing south, he chose the same route that Shenzhequan had taken and took a detour to the west of Dun province. The troops could only advance at night in order to not alarm King Yi of Fan province, but fortunately, he made it just in time. Shenzhequan leaned over to sniff Xiao Qiye. Xiao Qiye would not let him get his wish and lifted him high. In retaliation, Shenzhequan clutched him by the front of his clothes. Xiao Qiye stayed conscious of Shenzhequan's bandaged right hand as he was worried that he would worsen the injury if he so much as exerted force on it. So, he had no choice but to lower Shenzhequan and let the latter sniff all he wanted. "It has been 2 days since I last bathed, too." Shenzhequan pressed his knee up against Xiao Qiye and sank into the bedding to snuggle up to him. "Let's bathe together." Rain pitter-pattered on the eaves, sounding as if it was being scoured by countless amounts of tiny brushes. Xiao Qiye opened up his chest to Shenzhequan, and Shenzhequan lay on top of it. That loosened collar of his gave him a laid-back air. Every inch of his skin was seeking out Xiao Qiye. He was so relaxed that it was as if the sensuality oozing off from him was unintentional and all these expressions of his were innocent. Shenzhequan had the ability to turn his exhalations of breath into murmurs. In Xiao Qiye's eyes, Shenzhequan was a natural beauty. The expression in those eyes tantalized Xiao Qiye's heart the same way his warm fingertips grazed against the surface of the lake in Xiao Qiye's soul, stirring up ripple after ripple. Shenzhequan had moments where he would plead. Every time he could not bear it anymore, he would tearfully call out all the names he could to address Xiao Qiye, yet he could even make the way he pleaded sound so intoxicating. They had always been in sync with one another in bed, each with the ability to mutually read even the slightest moan and groan that passed between them. Such unparalleled ecstasy was derived from the way they fit so perfectly together. If Xiao Qiye wanted to hold his own against a lover like this, he had to be a wall, one that could stand firm against the incoming waves. Sure, Xiao Qiye's expression suddenly shifted as he said in a frivolous tone, "I'll bathe with you." Shenzhequan found the expression in those eyes ominous. As Dun province was located far to the east, the days grew cold easily. The bathhouses set up within Tianji courtyard were unlike the ones in Chu capital with windows. Instead, they were all sturdily built enclosed rooms. Inside, the bathing facilities were not only complete and comprehensive, but also varied and fanciful. Hot, humid water vapor would come assailing them in the faces the moment the door was opened and the bamboo blinds were rolled up. Even before Shenzhequan had been completely stripped of his clothes, he was already soaking in the water. Under the pretense of keeping his wound from contact with water, both his wrists had been bound with a waist sash and conveniently hung up on a small rack near the pool by Xiao Qiye. Xiao Qiye had even selected a little golden bell from the wicker basket for Shenzhequan, which he had suspended in the air. As long as Shenzhequan moved, the bell would ring, crisp and clear. Shenzhequan's clothes were soaked through. He could not withstand the heat in the bathhouse, but at that moment, he was too preoccupied to care about anything else. The tips of his ears had gone bright red, the stark contrast of which made the jade earring seem particularly fair and delicate in comparison. Xiao Qiye squatted before him and hoisted up Shenzhequan's legs. "Since you can't seem to remember a word I say," a bare-chested Xiao Qiye wiped the small blade clean with a handkerchief. "I'll have to teach you a lesson and drill it into you." Shenzhequan's toes curled slightly as he called out with his eyes shut, "Xiao Xian." Xiao Qiye's attention was on his hands. "Who are you calling?" The chill of the blade against Shenzhequan's skin jolted Shenzhequan into opening his eyes. Shame burned in his eyes. "I hate you to death." Xiao Qiye spared him a glance. "I hate you to death, too." Feeling the friction of the small blade as it scraped against him, Shenzhequan could only tremble slightly. The water was hot while the blade was cool, and the sensation of the blade traversing every inch of him was especially distinct and clear. He could not bear it, and he could not bring himself to look down. All he could dare to do was stare at Xiao Qiye. This gaze was truly too pitiful. It was the first time Xiao Qiye had ever seen it, and he simply had the urge to capture the moment by grabbing a brush and painting it down without delay. He was initially still miffed, but then he suddenly started to laugh. Xiao Qiye had never done something like this before. This was his first time, so he went at it very carefully and shaved all the areas that ought to be shaved completely clean. Shenzequan's back was still pressing against the wall of the pool, and these vastly different sensations drained him of his entire life's composure. He was genuinely in Xiao Qiye's hands now, and he did not dare to move even an inch. But their surroundings were so brightly illuminated that he gasped lightly for breath in the damp mist. Condensation coated the jade earring with every rise and fall of his chest. Shenzequan seemed to have become Xiao Qiye's jade, one that was toyed with until no ounce of privacy and secrecy remained. Xiao Qiye asked, "Are you still going to stab me in the heart next time?" Shenzequan did not answer. Xiao Qiye took another look after he was done shaving and discovered that Shenzequan's eyes were red through and through. He could not tell if he had teared up from the steam or from frustrations. Xiao Qiye's heart did not soften at all. He raised his hand to pinch Shenzequan's cheek and proclaim ruthlessly, "For each time you get injured, I'll shave you once." Shenzequan felt cool and chilly down there. His eyes were brimming with tears, and the redness at the tip of his ears had already spread to his chest. Before he was done taking a breather, Xiao Qiye pinned him against the wall of the pool and kissed him until the bell went swinging wildly. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The rain was still falling the next day. Shenzequan had a rare good night's sleep. When Xiao Qiye put on his clothes, Chen Yang was already waiting under the eaves. He slipped on the wooden clogs in the room and went out of the inner chamber. Instead of having Chen Yang discuss work in this room, Xiao Qiye headed out onto the walkway and made his way to another room. Chen Yang followed behind him and raised the bamboo blinds to disperse some of the stuffiness inside. He turned to Xiao Qiye and presented the register of names. The cavalrymen taken prisoner this time numbered 2,300 men. They are now being held in the Dun province prison under the watch of the Tse province's garrison troops. Xiao Qiye flipped through the book without sitting down and asked with his back to the light, "Where's Lei Zhengzhi?" "Dead." Chen Yang paused for a moment. "He was already killed when we dug him out from the ruins. Based on his injuries, he died of strangulation." Xiao Qiye set down the book. He recalled the injury on Shenzequan's right hand. After standing for a while, he said, "Don't wait until we return to Tse province, as it would be too late. Write a letter now and have it sent to Qidong as an urgent missive. Use my personal seal." At this point, he paused again and turned around. "On second thoughts, affix Lanzhou's seal." This matter concerned the situation in Zongbo, and personal relationships must not be brought into the mix during the discussions with Qizuyan. Qizuyan was already doing her part as a friend by taking care of Lu Pingjian on Lu Guangbai's behalf. Xiao Qiye's personal seal represented Libei, and if they kept on asking favors of her, they would not be able to repay this debt. Moreover, Shenzequan was the one in charge of Tse province now. As a commanding general of Libei, affixing his own seal would diminish Shenzequan's authority and prestige. Shenzequan still had to deal with Qizuyan in the future, and it would be inconvenient for both parties to act if they had to show him consideration and take him into account. Lei Zhengzhi is the main perpetrator behind the turmoil and unrest in the two prefectures of Dun province and Duan province. This time, he even led the Biancha cavalry into Dun province. Libei and Tse province joined forces to attack the enemy. "We fought the Biancha people, for the sake of the commoners in Zongbo," Chen Yang said smoothly. "We are not in the wrong, even if news of this incident were to spread to Chu capital. We are not in the wrong only because Chu capital has no soldiers." Xiao Qiye said, "Otherwise, there would be tens of thousands of accusations and charges slapped on Lanzhou. But just as a cornered dog would jump over a wall, a desperate man would be driven to drastic measures. Dun province is already in our possession. Lanzhou now has 3 prefectures under his control. Even if Shuiziaozuo and the Empress Dowager have been too busy with their own affairs, they are going to start thinking of ways to bring Lanzhou under control. The best way is to set Qizuyan loose to take down Fan province first so that Tse province loses their barrier in the southeast. But this matter was not of utmost urgency. The Bianjun Commandery was currently unmanned, and Qizuyan had already moved from Qiangjun Commandery to Bianjun Commandery to hold the fort and patch up the gap in defenses on Lu Guangbai's behalf. The Biancha people transferred Hassan from the southeast to the north, yet this did not give Qidong an unfair advantage over them. Amuer was still deploying his elite troops and generals here. That Xiao Qiye was able to make it to Tse province this time was also due to Xiao Fangxiu. Duan province was left without soldiers after the defeat of the Zongbo's troops, and consequently, this place became a vulnerable weakness of Great Zhou. But Amuer did not invade a second time. Instead, he concentrated his troops in the north and southeast. It was as if he was specifically bypassing Zongbo to chip away at the 2 difficult barriers that were Libei and Qidong. Xiao Fangxiu thought that Amuer was using diversionary tactics, and the emergence of the Scorpion Squad made Xiao Fangxiu all the more certain that Amuer had not given up on Zongbo at all. For this reason, he had to take Shenzequan's proposal to rebuild Zongbo's line of defense seriously. Xiao Qiye made a few inquiries about Dun province's military affairs. They had only just discussed the armory when they saw Gu Jin enter. "Master," Gu Jin cast a glance at the courtyard and said, "Fei Sheng and the others are still kneeling on the veranda." Xiao Qiye turned his head aside to look at the overlapping shadows through the window lattice. He did not answer. So, Gu Jin did not dare to bring it up again and retreated to the side. There were still bandits in Dun province whom they had yet to deal with. The 15,000 men that Xiao Qiye brought with him were enough to keep them in check with their military presence. Lu Er could barely even walk properly when he saw Xiao Qiye. Seeing that even Lei Jingzhi was dead, he did not dare to start hatching all those plans of his again. But he was, after all, not a decent man, and Xiao Qiye had no intent to let him remain around him. Thus, he sent Lu Er away to Kongling for him to make the necessary arrangements. Xiao Qiye did not lay a hand on the Dun province armory, as they still had plans to use this place after conquering it. Xiao Qiye busied himself around until noon before he remembered that Shenzequan was still sleeping. He returned to the room for a look and saw that Shenzequan had already gotten out of bed and was presently standing under the eaves listening to Kongling discuss affairs. When Shenzequan saw Xiao Qiye, he silently averted his gaze. Xiao Qiye showed that he didn't mind, knowing that he had gone too far in bullying Shenzequan yesterday and Shenzequan had still yet to get over it. As he had gotten up too early this morning, he lifted the curtains to enter the inner chamber, where he took the chance while he had free time to take a nap. When Xiao Qiye woke up, Shenzequan was sitting at the desk looking at Tse province's case files. Xiao Qiye wiped his face with a handkerchief and asked, "Have you taken your meal?" Shenzequan answered in a muted voice, "No." Xiao Qiye wanted to laugh, finding Lanzhou to be quite the pitiful one. No doubt he was unaccustomed to being smooth and bare down there, although the way he sat all prim and proper was unexpectedly a little seductive. Xiao Qiye sat down on the opposite side and propped up his leg before saying in a leisurely and carefree manner, "Then, let's call for them to serve up the food. We'll eat a little." Shenzequan set his brush down. He was about to say something when someone entered the outer chamber. Chen Yang did not head into the inner chamber and just announced, "Master, Lao Hu is here." Only then, Xiao Qiye remembered that he had asked Chen Yang to summon Tantai Hu over before he took his nap. There was something he had to say to him in Shenzequan's presence. He straightened up a little and said, "Let Lao Hu in." Shenzequan suddenly mouthed to him, "No entry." Xiao Qiye gave him a questioning look, but Shen Zequin ignored him. Outside, Tan Tai, who had already stride across the threshold and was waiting for Xiao Qiye to summon him into the inner chamber. Xiao Qiye did not understand what Shen Zequin meant by it, so he could only say, "I called you over for a matter. I didn't mention it before in Libei, but the time is right now. Let me ask you, will you defend Dun province?" Tan Tai, who had been following Xiao Qiye around all this time, so he was taken aback to hear him asking this. After blanking out for a moment, he asked, "Is Master staying in Dun province, too?" Twisting his thumb ring, Xiao Qiye said, "You had no choice when you followed me in Chu capital, and you were forced by circumstances when we later went to Libei. Times are different now. You can assume sole responsibility." Xiao Qiye saw Shen Zequin making his way over from under the other side of the table. Realizing that it did not bode well, he attempted to press down on Shen Zequin's head, but Shen Zequin bit down on him. He felt the stab of pain but did not make a sound. Outside, Tan Tai, who had clued in on the key point and was getting all antsy, so he asked, "Does Master not want me to return to Libei anymore?" The tip of Shen Zequin's nose edged along the curves of Xiao Qiye's contours. Xiao Qiye wanted to draw his legs back, but Shen Zequin was wedged between his legs, and Xiao Qiye could not flip over the table and scoop the other man up. They had not done anything last night. Keeping Shen Zequin's injury in mind, Xiao Qiye had simply fallen asleep after shaving Shen Zequin clean. And now the hot puffs of air that Shen Zequin was breathing into him were making him hard. "You are a native of Zongbo. The trusted aides under your command are also natives of Zongbo. We spoke about it before." Xiao Qiye composed himself and continued after a moment's pause, "Back in Chu capital." His tongue was slippery. Xiao Qiye tilted his head back slightly and carefully swallowed back that little sigh to keep it from escaping. Shen Zequin had already taken him into his mouth when he heard Tan Tai Hu fall to his knees with a thud. The corners of Shen Zequin's upturned eyes misted over with water from having taken Xiao Qiye too deep into his mouth. He raised his eyes to look at Xiao Qiye in this position. The viciousness in them all but turned into glistening waves of ripples that intensified Xiao Qiye's desire to bite him. Xiao Qiye's palms had nowhere to rest but to edged up along Shen Zequin's chin before finally coming to a stop at the back of Shen Zequin's head. "Don't cry," Xiao Qiye said in a raspy voice. "Continue." Tan Tai, who choked back the tears that had just spilled over, and said as he kneeled outside, "Master, I followed the Viceroy for 5 or 6 years, and it was all due to the Viceroy's promotion that I could lead the troops. After we left Chu capital, it was the Viceroy who trained and nurtured me throughout. When you told me to keep the camp defense layout in mind back then when we fought in the Shazan camp in Libei, I thought you wanted me to remain in Libei and guard the camps on your behalf. So why are you leaving me in Dun province now? Too much." Xiao Qiye could not help but loosen his collar. The waves of pleasure crashed over him and sent tingling sensations up the small of his back. All he could think of was to make Shen Zequin cry until Shen Zequin could no longer stir up a storm. End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 2, Other Heroes of Chaos. Chapter 177, Torrential Rain. Tan Tai, who was still pouring his heart out. "I have no objections if the Viceroy wants me to defend Dun province. I just can't bear to part with my brothers from Libei, and even more so, the Viceroy. Dun province is the place my eldest brother was originally stationed. I'm really..." Xiao Qiye's fingers sunk into Shen Zequin's hair. He patiently caressed Shen Zequin's earlobe with his thumb, rubbing it until that jade earring took on a faint hue of scarlet. The window was open and occasionally, the muffled sound of thunder would rumble. Xiao Qiye paid it no heed. Given that the inner and outer chambers were merely separated by a bamboo blind, Tan Tai Hu's voice was extremely clear. Shen Zequin was hopelessly flushed in the face and his words were inarticulate. He looked so vulnerable that he seemed succulent and ripe for the taking. He had hit upon the idea on the spur of the moment. How was he to know that it would be so hard to pull it off? Not only was his mouth stuffed to the brim, he was also choked to the point that his eyes were watering. When all was said and done, Tan Taihu was a bona fide man, and he felt rather embarrassed and ashamed to kneel here and cry. He composed himself and reverted to addressing Xiao Qiye by his original form of address. Dun Province doesn't have a garrison troop at present. Since Master is willing to leave this place in my hands, I will have to prove myself worthy of this kindness. Magnificent waves of pleasure assaulted Xiao Qiye closely one after another as he grasped Shen Zequin's right hand while simultaneously pressing Shen Zequin's head down with his hand in Shen Zequin's hair. It was cramped and narrow under the table. Shen Zequin was unable to endure the heat. And it did not take long for him to start sweating profusely. I'll leave you 5,000 soldiers. The jut in Xiao Qiye's throat bobbed. All the future financial matters will go through Tse province. You'll be under Lanzhou's management. If there are any matters of concern, let Lanzhou know as soon as possible. Tan Taihu knew Shen Zequin was in the inner chamber, too. He thought for a moment and said in all seriousness, Dun province has to recruit new soldiers and rebuild the city walls. I have to first discuss the exact figure for this portion of the expenditure with the prefectural lord. Tan Taihu mentioned some other matters too, all of which were government affairs that required further in-depth discussions. If it had been some other time, Shen Zequin would have summoned Kong Ling in to draft up a document with Tan Taihu. However, he was in no position to be distracted at this moment, and even if he had an opinion, they would all vanish at the press of Xiao Qiye's hand. The waves in those eyes built up until they eventually consolidated into water droplets that fell off like beads tumbling off a broken string. This was too stimulating a scene. Xiao Qiye tightened his grip. The sound of the rain was loud at times, and soft at others. Shen Zequin could not hold in his saliva. In this harried moment, he did not even know when Tan Taihu had taken his leave. Xiao Qiye lifted a leg and kicked the table away. Muffled thunder suddenly crashed through the sky. The rain poured even harder, pelting at the windows noisily as broken beads of water splashed all over. Xiao Qiye did not go anywhere else. He remained here, leaning against the chair to teach Shen Zequin a lesson. Both of Shen Zequin's hands were bound behind his back as he straddled Xiao Qiye with his face to him, murmuring under the din of the rain. Too smooth. In just a couple of times, Shen Zequin could not take it all in anymore. He shuddered amidst the jolts of pleasure, cutting a pitiful sight as he dirted Xiao Qiye's clothes from grinding against him. Xiao Qiye did not bother playing with tricks this time. He bound those two wrists of Shen Zequin's in place, letting him plead for mercy all he wanted with those utterance of Aya and Cen of his. He simply settled the account with Shen Zequin, along with the interest. The rain was still falling. When the rain came to a stop, Xiao Qiye fell onto the bedding and scooped Shen Zequin over. He was still grasping the latter's right wrist as he secured him where he was. Shen Zequin drifted off and woke up again, his head resting on Xiao Qiye's chest as he mumbled something incoherent. Xiao Qiye listened for a long time but could not comprehend what he was saying. He was so tired and sleepy he could barely open his eyes. He gave him a vague reply and both men grunted incongruously for a moment, with neither making sense of the other, before gradually sinking into a deep sleep. He slept until noon the next day, and while he was still half asleep, he heard Shen Zequin calling for him. He opened his eyes and dazedly said, hum. Shen Zequin, too sleepy to raise his head and only grasped Xiao Qiye's little braid tightly. Xiao Qiye slept for a while longer, but with military affairs still on his mind, it did not take him long to wake up. He had been going at it too hard last night, and now he rolled over to pin Shen Zequin down. Get up. It's time for your medicine. Shen Zequin covered Xiao Qiye's forehead with his left hand and pretended not to hear him. Xiao Qiye sighed and buried his head into Shen Zequin's chest to nuzzle against him until Shen Zequin sank into the bedding. He said in a muffled voice, Shen Lanzhou, Help me out of bed. The pressure on Shen Zequan made it hard for him to breathe, and it did not work when he clutched and tugged at Xiao Qiye's little braid either, so he could only open his eyes and say feebly, "My waist is sore, and my knees are hurting. I can't get up." Xiao Qiye reached his hand under Shen Zequan and helped him up with his hand supporting the latter's back, then he hoisted him over himself before getting out of bed. Shen Zequan was still in a daze when he was set down into the water. He leaned against Xiao Qiye, truly not wanting to move even his finger. Xiao Qiye did not want to move either, so both of them remained in this position as they soaked in the water. Chen Yang had already been waiting the entire morning. He heard the door open, and saw Xiao Qiye dressed in a clean, loose-fitting robe with wooden clogs on his feet. He let the maidservants in first. After a moment, he saw Shen Zequan, also dressed in a loose-fitting robe, step forth in his wooden clogs. Both of them looked like they had not slept enough. "Where's Lao Hu?" Xiao Qiye said. "Call him over again later. I forgot to instruct him on a number of issues yesterday. Summon Fei Sheng first." Shen Zequan looked at the veranda. "Why is he still kneeling?" Chen Yang acknowledged the orders and took his leave to get them. ******. Fei Sheng was kneeling at the foot of the veranda when he saw Kong Ling coming in with a straw rain cloak draped over him. He bowed his head and greeted, "Mr. Cheng Feng." Kong Ling removed his bamboo hat and took off the straw rain cloak, which he hung up at the side. "Why are you still kneeling?" Fei Sheng answered, "Master has not instructed otherwise." Fei Sheng had been kneeling here for 2 days. Even while Xiao Qiye was giving him the cold shoulder, he did not harbor Xiao Qiye the slightest bit of resentment. Kong Ling's mind cleared in understanding and he comforted, "The Marquis and the Prefectural Lord spend more time apart than together, so it's inevitable for the Marquis to fly into a rage when the Prefectural Lord is injured. Military affairs these past few days are rather taxing. His anger should have more or less worn off by now." Fei Sheng hurriedly said, "As guards, we ought to be punished for letting our master get injured. I have not seen master for 2 days already, and I'm worried about his injuries." Kong Ling nodded. "Your loyalty doesn't go unnoticed by the Marquis. Wait for a while longer, and it should be your turn to be summoned." Fei Sheng knew that Kong Ling must have discerned something by saying this, so he said, "This 10th son of the Fei family, am an unrefined man of little education. Please enlighten me." Kong Ling smiled and looked up to see Chen Yang walking towards them. He merely said, "Don't panic. Good times will follow after the rough time you had kneeling for these 2 days." Fei Sheng was worried that Xiao Qiye was going to wait until the dust had settled before settling scores with him, but Kong Ling's words did not seem to indicate that this would be the case. Kneeling for these 2 days had all but dissipated the joy he had felt earlier. He could not be sure how Xiao Qiye was going to punish him given what he had seen of Xiao Qiye's expression. Hearing himself being summoned, he hurriedly got to his feet and followed after Chen Yang. Shen Zequan was sitting on the chair drinking his medicine, and Xiao Qiye was keeping a close watch on him to ensure that he drank up every last drop of it. This medicine was so bitter that it made Shen Zequan frown, but he did not dare to spit it out with Xiao Qiye's gaze on him, so he forced himself to swallow it. He would not even drink strong tea because he hated the bitterness. Without Ji Gang by his side, he would pick and choose his medicines. Unless he was seriously injured, like he had been in the horse carriage this time, he would never give in. Xiao Qiye looked at the military affairs and pushed the small plate of honeyed candies towards Shen Zequan in passing. Fei Sheng entered, paid his respects and kneeled in the hall. It would not do for Shen Zequan to stuff himself with candy in front of his subordinates, so he retracted his fingertips from the rim of the plate and put up with the bitterness. "Have the brothers' injuries been attended to?" Fei Sheng answered truthfully. "Yes, they are all superficial injuries, not at all serious." Shen Zequan said with a solemn countenance, "They should recuperate if they are injured. Exempt them from shift duties in the next few days and leave the night watch to Chen Yang and the rest." Those two brothers have to be buried with full honors. If they have family in Tse province, take out 40 taels of silver from my account and see to the arrangements for them on my behalf. Fei Sheng was delighted upon hearing this, but he did not dare to let it show on his face. He hurriedly said, I'll surely carry out master's instruction down to the letter. Not anyone could carry out jobs on Shen Zequin's behalf. Tasks like this all used to be done by Jiao Tianya. To be able to draw money from Shen Zequin's personal account meant that Shen Zequin could trust him, and this trust was far more valuable than monetary rewards. Fei Sheng was beside himself with joy, but upon seeing an expressionless Yao Qi sitting at the side, he restrained himself and took his leave with his head lowered. The Jin Yue had put up a wonderful defense this time, and they did not turn tail and flee from the battlefield in the face of danger. Shen Zequin was sure to reward them. Xiao Qiye had Fei Sheng kneel because he wanted to knock it into Fei Sheng's head that as guards, they were at fault for every injury their master sustained, and that they should not forget who they were just because Shen Zequin did not hold them accountable time and time again. At the same time, there was also another layer of meaning behind his action. If Xiao Qiye were to first punish Fei Sheng, then Shen Zequin's reward later would appear all the more considerate, and Fei Sheng would then have to remember Shen Zequin's kindness. Shen Zequin turned his head, wanting to say a word to Xiao Qiye during this interval, but then Xiao Qiye raised his hand and stuffed the candy into his mouth. Then, Kong Ling entered. Xiao Qiye said with his usual expression, we have now taken down Dun province, but how to go about defending it is a problem. Tse province has no commanding general at present, so I'm leaving Tan Taihu here, along with 5,000 men from the Imperial Army and Tse province's garrison troop. We have to step up recruitment this winter. Fortifications of the city are also of pressing urgency. Chen Yang handed the register to Kong Ling. There were some words that were Shen Zequin's place to say, but he still had the candy in his mouth, so Xiao Qiye continued, Dun province's yamen needs to be rebuilt. The household registers have to be cleaned up. Cheng Feng, think about it and see if there is anyone from Tse province's yamen screening process this year that you can assign over to give Tan Taihu a helping hand. The screening of the general function staff of Tse province's yamen was conducted by Zhou Gui's advisors. 2 men were executed over Gao Zongxiang's incident the last time, and by handing this task to Kong Ling, Shen Zequin was giving the advisors of Tse province another chance. Kong Ling rose to his feet and answered, there are several decent ones. Once I get back, I'll draft up a list and present it to your lordship for perusal. When the time comes, I'd also like to ask for Yuan Zhou to give advice and counsel from the side. By doing this, Kong Ling took the opportunity Shen Zequin offered him, and in passing, gave Yao Wenyu a boost while lowering his own position. Although Chen Yang had seen advisors before while following Xiao Qiye around in the military tents, all of them did not possess the same kind of magnanimous bearing Kong Ling had. Surprised, he cast a glance at Kong Ling. For certain arrangements, just discuss it in detail with Tan Taihu. Xiao Qiye said. You are originally the advisor of his eldest brother, Tan Tai Long, so just speak your mind. He respects you deep down and will not dare to give you the attitude. They discussed some more about the governmental affairs in Dun province, all of which were plans that had to be drafted and worked out. There were still the group of merchants outside the courtyard waiting to see Shen Zequin. Yan Hiru and Harigu had been placed under lock and key, too, as there were still questions about the scorpions that had yet to be cleared up. On the other hand, Xiao Qiye had to maintain correspondences with Wu Ziyu, who had remained behind in Libei. Snow had already started to fall in Libei, and the various bridle paths were either obstructed or damaged. The convoy squad was handed the task of repairing the paths, but they only had so much money and manpower. The priority of roads to be repaired and the process of repairs were all questions that had to go through Xiao Qiye first before a decision could be made. This tiny bit of respite seemed to be all the free time both of them could get. Shen Zequin did not want to wake up in the morning precisely because there was too much to do. Once the merchants entered, they started to make such a din with everyone trying to get a word in that Xiao Qiye regretted it a little. They had been going at it to their heart's content the night before, and as a result, Shenzequan had to hang in there and drag his lackadaisical self to handle the day's affairs. With that thought in mind, Xiao Qiye turned his head around to look at Shenzequan, but who would have thought that Shenzequan would be leaning against his chair listening to the merchants make a ruckus with a deadpan expression, all the while holding a brush in his hand to draw a tortoise on the paper? So, Xiao Qiye laughed. And saw Shenzequan write his name, Xiao Xian, on it. End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 2, Other Heroes of Chaos. Chapter 178, Merchants. Worried about their respective businesses, the merchants were all anxious to meet with Shenzequan. The hall was saturated with a cacophony of noises, with a blend of all sorts of accents engaged in conversations where everyone was talking without actually communicating and comprehending the other, much like a chicken trying to talk to a duck. Many people could not even speak bureaucratic jargon fluently without the Yan clan acting as the mediator. Yan Hiru set up this small mutual market in Dun province, and they had prior dealings in trades like tea, salt, copper, and steel with the bandits as well as the various tribes of Biancha. Now that Yan Hiru was in custody, they were afraid that Shenzequan would pursue the matter. Hence, they made plans to call on Shenzequan together, hoping to make enough of a commotion that the law would not be enforced given the large number of violators. Chen Yang notified the maidservants to prepare tea. Not only was the hall packed with seated people, the area at the foot of the veranda was also fully crammed with standing merchants who had come after getting wind of the news. These people, having arrived from all over the place, crowded boisterously together, making such a ruckus that the courtyard resembled a bustling downtown area. It was here where Shenzequan sat, answering, "That makes sense," regardless of what he heard. The din in the hall persisted until it was almost night, and still, they did not make any progress. Shenzequan had seemingly replied to every question, but he did not really answer any of them. He left them hanging until they were all starving and choked up with pent-up frustrations. Xiao Qiye headed over next door to finish up his discussion of military affairs with Tan Taihu. He stepped out to see the dark sky and the lamps lit in the hall. The merchants outside were sitting and reclining in various poses on the mats on the ground, while Shenzequan was still inside playing the time game with the merchants. Fei Sheng lifted the curtains and stepped out. He moved over to Xiao Qiye and said in a soft voice, "Master asks if you are done with the discussion of military affairs. If so, we can serve up the meal." Xiao Qiye asked, "Have these people already been dismissed?" Fei Sheng answered, "Master says not to dismiss them. Let them remain here." He even invited them to stay here for the night. So, Xiao Qiye nodded and said, "Then, let's have dinner in the courtyard next door." *******. The merchants had all made up their minds to get a definitive answer from Shenzequan. At the very least, they had to see Yan Hiru. Their goods were all stored at a side courtyard belonging to the Yan clan. What was to become of these goods now that the Biancha cavalry and the bandits had retreated? Yan Hiru had given them his guarantee, so the question of whether they ought to stay or leave all had to be discussed again. But Shenzequan was too good at passing the buck and did not give them anything precise. Fearing that the soldiers whose presence was everywhere in Dun province, the merchants did not dare to offend Shenzequan at all. All they could do was suppress their anger and continue to sit here with the sole intention of dragging it on and wearing Shenzequan down. Shenzequan reckoned it was about time once he was done reading all the important affairs of Dun province. On seeing Fei Sheng return, he rose and said to the merchants with a smile, "Gentlemen, you have been sitting here all day. We can discuss the matters again later. I've gotten my men to prepare a banquet. Let's talk about it in detail during the feast later." Without giving any explanation, he bent under the curtains Fei Sheng had lifted and left. The merchants sitting inside waited for a long time, but Shenzequan did not return, and the maidservants did not enter to serve the dishes either. They lifted the curtains and stepped out for a look to find only familiar faces left in the courtyard. Not even a guard was in sight. The man who had smoked a few pipes grew anxious and slapped his thigh. He couldn't have run away, could he? Instantly alarmed, the merchants crowded together like a flock of sparrows and charged over to the entrance of the courtyard, where they discovered the doors were completely sealed. Someone said in horror, "Don't tell me they are planning to silence us? That won't do. Your lordship, your lordship. We are all decent businessmen with documents endorsed by the local authorities." Upon hearing the pounding on the door, Fei Sheng, who was outside, hoisted his blade over his shoulder and said, "What nonsense are you all spouting? His lordship is inviting all of you gentlemen to have a rest in the courtyard. Weren't you people unwilling to leave? Then just sleep here." The merchants hollered, "We want to see his lordship." Fei Sheng sneered and said, "Haven't you already seen him today? My master stayed inside with all of you gentlemen for half the day." As he spoke, he sent someone to move over a chair for him. He sat down facing the door. "We have checked all of your goods, and the copper and steel among them are all strictly prohibited by the government. It's not going to be that easy to retrieve them. It's a state of extreme unrest everywhere now." The man who had been smoking earlier stood on tiptoe to lean over the crack of the door and quibbled, "It's all too easy to get our hands on a few batches of goods, but we only did the trade this one time. We are all honest people." Fei Sheng did not beat around the bush with them. He raised a hand to take the book and said as he flipped the pages, "Know what I'm holding in my hands now? It's the book of registrations from the Yan clan's pawn shop, with detailed records of the goods every one of you imports to Dun province every month. It is all down in black and white, so it can't be fake, can it?" The merchants within whispered to one another, wiping their sweat and flicking their sleeves as they crowded together again. They made such a ruckus that Fei Sheng could not make out what exactly they were saying. Eventually, that man craned his neck and shouted through the door, "Tea has long since ceased to be prohibited. Hey, I'm a tea trader. Open the door. Don't implicate the innocent. Zongbo has been in such a state of decline these 2 years. Who are you selling tea to in Dun province? The Yan clan themselves is the largest tea merchant in the south." As Fei Sheng spoke, he lifted his Xiaochun blade and rapped hard on the door panel with the sheath. "Stop making a ruckus. Hurry. Up and spit out the truth." "What truth do you want us to spit out?" The man stubbornly refused to admit it. "The goods are all recorded clearly in the book. Just match the goods with the records in the book, and it will all be clear." Fei Sheng swung the book in his hand and said, "None of you will be able to escape if we send this to Chu capital and hand it over to the Yamen. Let me tell you this, my master is a benevolent man. He's giving you the opportunity to make amends. All you need to do is to list down truthfully on paper who you consulted with in Dun province and who you converted the silver for, and I'll immediately open the doors and let all of you out. All past accounts will be written off too. Other than tea, out of the 4 major items of tea, salt, copper, and steel, the last 3 were all commodities controlled by the imperial court. The Shi clan could set up a copper mine in Juexi because they had special permission, as decreed by an imperial edict. They had to audit the accounts with the Ministry of Revenues and the Ministry of Works on a monthly basis, as well as assign supervisors for the specific purpose of overseeing its operation. But this errand was a lucrative one with plenty of potential to harvest ill-gotten gains, and the supervisors, all of whom were picked by the Ministry of Revenue, were often in cahoots with the Shi clan. They colluded to falsify accounts for submission to the imperial court, which in turn helped the Shi clan to conceal the copper and steel. All the flow and movement of copper and steel outside the Shi clan could be seen as collusion between the local officials and merchants. These coppers and steels were just like the military provisions that were stolen from within Great Zhou in exchange for huge profits. Yan Hiru's operation of the pawn shops and pleasure houses in Dun province was not just meant to provide the various merchants from all over with a place to trade, but also to dispose of stolen goods on behalf of the local officials. It was here that he had the goods converted into silver. Lu'er had not given a complete account when he led Shen Zequin's squad into Dun Province, that was, the need for a specific secret signal to enter Dun Province was not just for the purpose of playing by the rules. Once Fei Shen was done speaking, an uproar broke out on the other side of the door. All kinds of accents could be heard amongst the commotion as the merchants crowded and jostled noisily at the door. Fei Shen closed the book, lifted the recently brewed tea in his hand, and blew at it as he savored it. ******. Before dinner time, Chen Yang had given the kitchen instruction to prepare fish, and as a result, Shen Zequin ate an extra half a bowl of rice. The remaining half of the fish ended up in Xiao Qiye's stomach. As long as the second young master did not have to pick out the fish bones himself, he was more than happy to consume fish to his heart's content. After their meal, both men stood under the eaves and listened as the merchants in the courtyard next door cursed and swore. Xiao Qiye rinsed his mouth and said as he wiped it, "Isn't there a scorpion still? Let's call him over now. I have a question for him." Chen Yang left to summon him. Xiao Qiye turned towards Shen Zequin and asked, "You haven't been calling for Ding Tao to stay by your side these days. Why is that?" Shen Zequin replied while looking at Xiao Qiye, "Lei Jingji is in Dun Province. If there is no one keeping watch on Li Xiong, he might run out to look for Lei Jingji. Ding Tao is his playmate, so it's only fitting for the two children to keep each other company." Xiao Qiye raised the teacup in his hand to take a sip. He appeared to have believed Shen Zequin. When Shen Zequin tilted his head, he exposed part of his neck which was decorated with faint traces that Xiao Qiye left there. Set against those marks, the jade earring appeared even whiter in contrast. Shen Zequin did not continue the conversation on Ding Tao and instead said, "The arm guard was previously damaged. I'll get another one made when we return to Tse province this time." Thinking about the arm guard reminded Xiao Qiye of Hassan. He looked into the night and said, "It's still usable after some repairs." Xiao Qiye had never mentioned Hassan to Shen Zequin. That defeat had silenced him quickly, concealing away all those lofty sentiments and ambitions of his. Transporting supplies was truly exhausting, but everyone was exhausted in Libya. Even Lu Yizi was patching up old coats all day to provide warm winter clothes for the battlegrounds. Xiao Fangxiu had kept the blade that was Xiao Qiye back in its sheath, holding him back from putting all of his brilliance and talents on full display, but Xiao Qiye was glad to endure this hardship. He was willing to bide his time and wait for the right opportunity. "I'll get two made for you," Shen Zequin said seriously, "and engrave my name on them, too." Xiao Qiye raised his arm and pinched Shen Zequin's chin. After a moment's pause, he said, "Let's not engrave any names on the arm guard." Blades and swords did not discriminate between friend or foe on the battlefield. Injuries and deaths in war were inevitable. Xiao Qiye was unwilling to let Shen Zequin risk his life out there with him, not even with his name. He wanted a good omen, he wanted Shen Zequin to live to a ripe old age. Harago was locked up together with Yan Hiru. Both of them had already been starving for 2 days. He was still wounded, and his lips were parched when he was dragged to the veranda under the eaves. He braced himself, barely hanging in there. Xiao Qiye squatted down and shrouded Harago under his shadow. Gu Jin immediately pressed Harago's head down and brushed aside his hair to reveal the scorpion tattoo on the side of his neck. "Scorpion of Geedle." Xiao Qiye asked gravely, "What are you doing in Zongbo?" Harago's arms were tightly bound. He scuffed the ground, refusing to answer. Gu Jin gripped him by the throat and yanked his head up in Xiao Qiye's direction, then said coldly, "Answer the question." Harago breathed heavily as he cast a swift glance at Shen Zequin, who was standing by the door. But this one look infuriated Xiao Qiye, and Harago's head was almost instantaneously slammed down onto the ground. Sounds of him struggling rang out as he was pressed against the icy cold wooden floorboards. "I'm not the enemy. Haragu could not break free. He felt as if he was being crushed by an iron arm. He did his utmost to look up, but all he could see was Xiao Qiye's boots. "Help me, Shen." Xiao Qiye was expressionless. Gradually, Haragu ran out of breath. His cheek scraped against the floor, and while he was on the verge of death, he shouted, "There is still a lot more I have to say." He gasped hard for air. "Don't you all want to know about Bai Cha?" Xiao Qiye responded. "Before you learn to answer properly, we don't want to know a thing." Haragu felt the strength of the pressure being exerted on his nape. He strained to push his head back against that force. Sweat trickled down his temples as he choked out, "I Zongbo, cough, cough. To flee for my life." The two fingers on Shen Zequin's right hand started to throb with faint pulses of pain. He strode a step closer and stopped next to Haragu. "3 days ago, you told me that you called me a son of Geetle because Bai Cha split you people up." Haragu swallowed his saliva with difficulty and gasped heavily. "That's correct. It's because Bai Cha split us up, that's why you exist." Shen Zequin frowned slightly. Xiao Qiye let go abruptly, and Haragu took in huge gulps of air. Gu Jin lifted him up. He was covered all over in grime as he took a moment to take a breather before blurting out, in the Bianxia tongue, "Geetle means light." This was the name Bai Cha gave it. "Your mother's story is a long one, so if you don't mind, give me a drink of water first. I swear to you that every word I say is the truth." End chapter.